I wanna shout it out that I love Jesus. Tell the world that God...
Morning, gang. All right, this is it. This is our last week with this month's virtue. All right, what is it? Anybody remember? You better know it. That's right. It's responsibility. All right. So I bet you're wondering what we're going to be responsible for this week, huh? All right, this week we are going to learn what our greatest responsibility is. You wonder what it is? Now let's think about it. In week 1, we learned that we should be responsible with what God has given us. Stuff like our time and our talents. Well, that seems pretty important to me, but is it the greatest responsibility? Nah. In week 2, we learned that we need to be responsible with our words. Words can be pretty powerful in good ways and in bad ways. So maybe our words are our greatest responsibility. In week 3, we learned that we need to be responsible for our neighbors. We should help people when they're in need. I don't know, this is starting to get a little overwhelming, isn't it? We're responsible for a lot of things. All right, so it actually would help if we knew which one was the most important so we could work on that one the hardest, right? So which one is it? Which one is our greatest responsibility? Let's find out. All right, David, take it away.
Good morning, gang, and now for an amazing true story from the Bible. Now this story is found in the book of Matthew. I got a question for you guys. Is Matthew in the Old or the New Testament? Want to hear it? That's right. Matthew's in the New Testament. But before we get to our story, I have a question. How many remember learning about something called the Ten Commandments from back in the Old Testament? Okay, so how many of you can name the Ten Commandments by heart? And no peeking at your Bibles. You know, honestly, it's always been hard for me to remember the Ten Commandments. So I tried looking up a more kid-friendly version in words that I knew. You guys want to hear them? Great. All right, here we go. The first of the Ten Commandments is put God first. Sounds pretty important, right? The second commandment is worship God only. And we talk a lot about that here. Now, third is use God's name with respect. Remember God's Sabbath. That's a big word. Respect your parents. That one, sometimes that's a toughie, right? Do not hurt other people. Ouch. Be faithful in marriage, and do not steal. Do not lie. Do not be jealous of others. Whew. It can be kind of hard to remember all 10 commandments, can't it? Now, if you think it's hard to remember the 10 commandments, even with them written out on this screen, just think about this. There are over 600 more rules in the Old Testament. Yeah, you heard me right, 600. And we all have rules in our own homes that we have to follow too. Can you guys think of some? Yeah? And maybe even more rules at school, right? Like no talking when the teacher's talking, don't chew gum, raise your hand if you want to talk. All right, even our country has rules. There are so many rules. With all these rules, how are we supposed to obey them all? Don't you kind of just feel like it's too much sometimes? Maybe even impossible? Well, did you know that back when Jesus lived on earth, there were these guys who knew all the rules and made sure that you knew them as well. It was the Pharisees' job to make sure people obeyed the rules, every single one, even if there were more than 600. The Pharisees often gathered together to see if they could come up with a way to trick Jesus. And when Jesus would teach the people, the Pharisees would try and challenge him with difficult questions. But so far, Jesus passed every single test, and he answered every question easily. The Pharisees knew they were going to have to try even harder. So, one day they came up with the question they were sure would stump Jesus once and for all. They decided to ask him this. All right. Of all the laws and commandments that we have from God, which commandment is the greatest of them all? Now, I imagine the Pharisees might have even argued about the right answer with each other. Some of them probably thought the greatest commandment was respect your parents. Now, it is important to respect your parents. Some of them probably thought the greatest commandment was do not steal, which is also important, right? Some of them probably thought the greatest commandment should have something to do with how we use our words. Words are very important, and if we don't choose them wisely, people could get hurt. But what about do not lie or do not hurt others? Aren't those important rules as well? Well, if the Pharisees couldn't even decide which commandment was the greatest, and they were the experts, they thought there was no way that Jesus could answer this question. Well, they were confident that this question would trip Jesus up and that people wouldn't follow him anymore. Pharisees looked for an opportunity to test Jesus, and the next time they saw him teaching the people, they asked the question, excuse me, teacher, I was just wondering which is the most important commandment in the law. The Pharisees probably thought the question would be a difficult one for Jesus, as it had been for them, right? They probably thought to themselves, we got him, guys. But Jesus was ready, and he gave them an answer that none of them expected. He didn't say, respect your parents or go to church every day. When Jesus was asked what the great commandment was, he replied, and this is in Matthew chapter 22. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Well, the Pharisees were blown away, but Jesus wasn't finished. He said, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The Pharisees and the law were flabbergasted. When they saw that Jesus had answered wisely, as he always did, they went away, afraid to test him even further. And this is really exciting, guys. It's like Jesus was saying that all the laws really fit into just one of two big categories. Love God, love others. Now, not sure it can be that easy, right, guys? Well, let's see if it works with the 10 Commandments. First, do not lie. Let's see. Well, if I lie to someone, I'm not showing them love, so, this commandment probably goes in the love others category. Well, what about don't be envious of others? That's love others as well, right? How about remember God's Sabbath? Well, that's the love God category. Respect your parents? Love others, right? Do not hurt other people. Love others. Put God first. That's love God. Be faithful in marriage and do not steal. Well, those are both love others. And what about worship God only? That's a love God. Use God's name with respect. How about that? Love God. Wow, right? So if you can remember to love God and love others, you will actually be able to obey all of the 10 Commandments, whether you can remember them or not. And guess what? All of these other rules fall into one of these categories as well. It is our responsibility to follow the rules and laws of our country, our state, and our homes, right? If we can remember to love God and love others, all these other laws and rules are easy to follow. We only have two responsibilities, really, to love God and love others. And responsibility is not really about the rules anyway. It's about the relationship. It's about our relationship with others and our relationship with God. When we love someone, we want to treat that person with respect and spend time with them. Now let me show you something really cool. Watch this. See that? Love others fits into the love God perfectly. Just in case these two things were still too many to remember, there really is only one. Love God. Now, when we love God, we can't help but love his people. When we love God, when we focus on loving God first, the responsibility part is much easier and more natural, even with the people around us all the time. Our greatest responsibility is actually something fun. Loving someone who loves us so much. We just need to remember that I can be trusted when I put God first. Can you guys say that with me? I can be trusted when I put God first. And I can put God first because I know that I can trust God no matter what. Think about all that you saw when you stepped outside today. Was the sun shining? Did you feel any wind or hear any animals? Did you take a deep breath? Without even thinking about it, life happens. The sun keeps shining, animals play, the seasons change, we have air to breathe. From the beginning, when God created the world, he set systems into motion. If he decided to ignore those, our world would quickly fall apart. But God takes responsibility for what he creates. You can trust him with every single moment of your life. You can trust God no matter what. Let's think back to some of the other things we've learned this month, guys. I can be trusted when I make the most of what God has given me. That falls under love God. What about I can be trusted when I use the right words? And also, I can be trusted when I choose to help others in need. Well, those all fit nicely under love God, the greatest commandment of all time. I will see you guys next week.
Whew, all right, that's a relief. All this talk about what's expected of me, I was starting to feel a little tired of all my responsibilities. But lucky for me, my greatest responsibility is not boring at all. It's actually fun. My greatest responsibility is to love God more than anything. And it's great to love our Creator who loves us so incredibly much. The best part is, when I put God first, all those other things I'm responsible for just kind of fall into place. When I put God first, I'm thinking about how I can use my talents to show him how much I love him. When I put God first, I'm choosing words that honor him and bring glory to him. When I put God first, I'm loving the people around me because, they're all his unique and wonderful creations. So we can show our love for God by spending time with him. In fact, we can try to make it easy for you by giving you your God time cards each week, all right? Use them. They'll help you get to know God even better. And they'll help you start and end your days with him. All right, the one thing to remember today is, I can be trusted when I put God first. It's like our memory verse for the month. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Remember, that's from Luke 16:10. Okay, so the first step to being trusted is to put God first. God has such great expectations for us, since he knows how much we're loved and how much we've been given to share. So you guys have an awesome week. We'll see you at the beginning of next week for a whole nother virtue.
Never gonna stop, never gonna stop. I wanna shout it out.